A big hello to everyone. And I'm here today with psychotherapist Lena Durhelli, whose work has been featured in Oprah Magazine and Washington Post, just to name a few publications. She's also a best-selling author who wrote My Daddy is a Hero, the true story of how Chris Watts annihilated his family. Lena, we invited you here today to talk about gaslighting. So I guess the best way is to start with a definition for anyone who doesn't know exactly what it is.
Yes. So being able to define and understand gaslighting is probably the most important thing. You have to be able to identify it when it's happening to you. So basically, the term was born out of it was actually a play, and then it was turned into a movie. And the concept was that this man, he wanted to swindle his wife out of her inheritance. And so what he did was he manipulated her into thinking she was crazy. So the name gaslight comes from this part in the movie where he sets the gas lights to flicker on and off in the kitchen. And when she says that, oh, the lights are flickering, he tells her, oh, no, they're not. So, he's doing this sort of manipulative behavior and making her second guess her reality and her perception. And so I think we've all had experiences where we've asked ourselves, wait, am I crazy? I know we've all done this. Somebody says something to us or somebody does something that doesn't feel good. We know in our gut that it's not right. But then we second guess ourselves and so wait, am I the crazy one? And so that's what gaslighting, that's the effect of it. That's what's intended to do. It's intended at its most malicious extent. It's intended to make the person feel insane. It's to make the person doing the gaslighting feel in control and in power over the person. But gaslighting can also be done unintentionally. And a lot of people who, weren't raised with great relationship skills may have good intentions and may be doing it. So there's, there's different levels of gaslighting, but at its worst, when it's done by a person who has an abusive personality, then it's done with malicious intent in order to manipulate or control the target or victim.
Well, next, I'd like to ask you if someone's been a prolonged victim of gaslighting, how can they recover and what do you think is the best methods?
Yeah, well, first, I think just to give a couple examples of what gaslighting might be, is, you may approach someone, and this is somebody you're in a close relationship with. They may say something to you that's really rude or really offensive and really hurtful. It could be a criticism. It could be something that they know would be triggering or harmful to you to hear. And then as soon as you get upset, they say something to diminish your response or to make you again feel like what they did wasn't bad. So, some of the sayings that somebody who is a gaslighter might say to you is that you're paranoid, you're crazy, you're too sensitive, you're overreacting, those kind of things. And again, that makes the person question themselves and say, wait, am I overreacting to that? And then it creates this whole psychological downward spiral of constantly second guessing ourselves and it at its worst, really pulling back from everybody around us, self-hatred, trauma, all of these things, because it's a real psychological game. It's really, really harmful, especially when it's done repeatedly over a long period of time. It can cause not just trauma, but post-traumatic stress disorder. And so it can cause some real serious damage. So when we're talking about healing from gaslighting, it depends to the extent of it, right? And so somebody who has been in a relationship with an abuser for years and years, that is really prolonged gaslighting. They may feel like a shell of themselves. They may need a really long time to rebuild their sense of self and their sense of trust in the world again, and the sense of safety in the world and the ability to trust other people and trust themselves. So at the most extreme, probably therapy with a trauma-informed therapist is the ideal. But if you can't find a therapist or it's, cost prohibitive, although there's certain ways to find therapists who do sliding scales or pro bono work, there are also a lot of books out there, about narcissistic abuse. Gaslighting is definitely a feature of narcissistic abuse. So usually people who have had this prolonged gaslighting, it's usually done by a narcissistic person. So there's some books that you can read to help you recover, but definitely a trauma-informed therapist is probably the best way to go. Somebody who understands the real psychological impact of gaslighting and how long it will take. The person needs repeated reassurance over and over again that they, repeated good affirmations about themselves and repeated good experiences with other people, to start being able to trust and heal again. Another thing about gaslighting is no contact with the person is really important, especially again, it's not always easy or feasible to cut off contact, especially if somebody is a family member, for example, or you share children with a person who is an abusive gaslighter. But if you do get to a point where you are separated from the person, or you do feel you're at a point where this family member is so toxic to you, going no contact with somebody who is a gaslighter is one of the most effective ways to start breaking the cycle, because then that you've put up a boundary and they can't continue to psychologically manipulate you and hurt you. So those are just a few things of, therapy, reading books on narcissistic abuse and gaslighting, trauma-informed therapy, and no contact are probably the strongest tools you can have for beginning to heal from this.
That's great. So, well, one thing we can do without a therapist, which you mentioned, is positive self-reaffirmation, I guess. Those around, good friends and close people to you could help you with that, and you could do it yourself. Look in the mirror and reassure yourself. I mean, that's something I think we all need to do that sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard for some of us who really have, our self-esteem has really been tarnished by somebody else, and so that can be really hard to do. It can be really hard to find self-love and self-worth when we've been abused for a long time, emotionally, psychologically, physically, and whatever capacity. But you make a really good point that a support system, a healthy, good support system, is so important. And so if there are people in your life that cherish you and make you feel good and support you and love you, and you feel that safety with them, then yes, those are the people you want in your corner to continue to support you and to focus on. If you have good people in your life who treat you well, to focus on those people and realize that there are good people in the world, and that part of life is learning to put our energies towards the good people and take our energies away from the people that hurt us.
Well, thank you very much, Lena. Well, I'd like to invite you back because I think there's a lot of other things we'd like to hear advice from you about. But for today, I think I kept you long enough. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yep, we'll do it again for sure. Something else.
Okay, well, bye for now and hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Nadia. Bye.